Greetings everybody, 'tis I, 480 volts, and I've left Sonic hanging for too long, so let's get into the next main installment of the series, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles.
After the completion of Sonic 2, the Sega Technical Institute split into two teams. One comprised Japanese developers, and the other Americans. The American side worked on Sonic's Spinball, while the Japanese side, which included the likes of Yuji Naka and Hirokazu Yasuhara, developed Sonic 3. I'm sure most people by now are familiar with this game's history, but for the two of you who might be wondering why this game is called Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles, well, the developers wanted this third installment to be bigger and better than the previous attempts. They spent quite a bit of time focusing on improving the gameplay and story. However, they soon realized that the game would never fit into a single Genesis cartridge. To create a cartridge with sufficient memory capacity would have taken more time and money than the team was willing to spend, so they split the game into two separate halves and released them at different times of the year 1994. The first half was released as a normal Genesis cartridge under the title of Sonic the Hedgehog 3, while the second half was released several months later under the title of Sonic and Knuckles. Sonic and Knuckles was released as a special cartridge featuring lock-on technology which allowed the user to lock the game onto a normal Genesis cartridge such as Sonic 3. Locking it to Sonic 3 combined both halves into one game, allowing the player to experience the full Sonic 3 and Knuckles package as it was intended to be released. Very similar to, say, an episodic title or DLC.
For the purpose of this review, I'm going to talk about both halves separately and then take a look at the combined version. Let's start with Sonic 3.
Sonic 3 opens with Sonic and Tails flying their plane, the Tornado, over an ocean. Sonic transforms into his super form, and as they enter a remote island, they are greeted abruptly by the island's only inhabitant, Knuckles the Echidna, who steals the Chaos Emeralds from Sonic and hightails it out of there. I think it's interesting that up until this moment, Sonic retained the emeralds from the previous game, unlike other titles in which he apparently has lost the emeralds he acquired in the previous game. The only other Sonic game that has ever done this, that I am aware of, is Sonic Unleashed. Anyhow, Sonic sets off after Knuckles to try and retrieve the emeralds, but is quick to discover that Dr. Robotnik is up to his old tricks again. As was the case in the first two games, the stages are filled with badniks, which release woodland critters upon being defeated. Like Sonic 2, each zone is divided into two acts. Something new this time around, Act 1 finishes with a mini boss fight against a robot of some sort, while Act 2 finishes with a standard Robotnik boss battle, after which Sonic breaks open a capsule releasing more woodland critters. Throughout various points of the game, Sonic will run into Knuckles, who usually has some sort of booby trap in store. Something I like about this game is how Act 1 seamlessly transitions into Act 2 rather than simply cutting to Act 2. Also, many of the zones transition into the next one as well. At the end of Angel Island Zone, Sonic falls off of a bridge and lands in Hydrocity Zone, and at the end of Carnival Night Zone, Sonic shoots out of a cannon and lands in Ice Cap Zone, and so on and so forth. This is a little thing, but it makes the different stages feel like they're part of one big world. The final zone, Launch Space Zone, is definitely anticlimactic, but it does give you an idea of what's going on. You will occasionally see a giant spherical structure in the background, apparently under some kind of maintenance. This is actually Robotnik's space station, the Death Egg, which crashed at the end of Sonic 2, and does not in no way never not look nothing not like the Death Star. If I was to make assumptions, I'd say that this is where the Death Egg crashed, and Dr. Robotnik has discovered some sort of energy source emitting from this island and is trying to harness this energy to power the Death Egg. Knowing that it's only a matter of time before Sonic finds him, Robotnik makes contact with Knuckles and tells him that Sonic is out to steal his treasure, or something like that. Towards the end of Launch Base Zone, Sonic has a brief scuffle with Robotnik, jumps into a nearby Eggmobile, and has one last run-in with Knuckles, who plummets several feet to the ground as the Death Egg successfully launches. Sonic lands on a small loading platform of the Death Egg and has a two-phased final boss battle with Robotnik, after which the loading platform detaches from the station and falls to the ground as Sonic watches the Death Egg fall in the distance, thus ending Sonic 3. The story isn't great, but it gets the job done. Gameplay-wise, it's everything you should expect from Sonic 2, with some improvements here and there. Sonic is rocking his old moves from Sonic 2, which means no Super Peel out from Sonic CD, but the Sonic 2 Spin Dash is back. Sonic has a new move this time around called the Insta-Shield. Press the jump button twice, and Sonic will emit a small shockwave that can destroy or damage anything within its proximity. And it also gives Sonic a nanosecond of invincibility. I wouldn't bet my life on the invincibility, but the move is useful for taking enemies who are just barely out of your reach. It's not something I would consider game-breaking, but it does make a noticeable difference. Something new and innovative this time around are the different types of shields. In the previous games, a shield simply provided one extra hit point. In this game, there are 3 different kinds of shields, each with elemental properties. The water shield allows you to breathe indefinitely underwater, which is pretty useful considering that every single zone except Marble Garden Zone has some amount of water, even if only in one act. The fire shield, which protects you from any kind of fire. This one is especially handy when taking out bosses whose engines emit plasma, and you have to be careful where you jump. And the lightning shield, which creates a magnetic field that attracts rings to you. How handy is this when you're speeding through a stage and see some rings above you but don't want to slow down and grab them? The lightning shield will just pull them towards you. Each of the 3 shields have their own jumping mechanics as well. When you press the jump button twice, the water shield, Sonic can constantly bounce up and down like a basketball, which isn't that useful to be honest. With the fire shield, Sonic can perform an air dash. Be careful with this one, it can get you into trouble considering how tight and cramped some of the stages can be. And with the lightning shield, Sonic can perform a double jump, which, let's be honest, in any platformer, whether it be 2D or 3D, a double jump is a godlike move that can save you from so much trouble. Also, each shield can repel small projectiles, like this turtle's pellets, or this guy's spiked balls, or even the spiked pieces of rock that this mini-boss drops on you. There is a certain amount of applied physics, however. Touching any kind of water causes you to lose your fire or lightning shields. The water shield is the only one you can wear underwater. The level design features more of the same fast-paced platforming we've come to love from the previous Sonic games. There's lots of nifty little secrets or alternate pathways cleverly tucked away. Sonic 3 rewards explorers, so if you see something that piques your curiosity, go for it. Or you can blaze through the stage in the most simplistic ways possible if that's what you prefer. I will say that Hydrocity holds secrets that, to this day, I have never discovered, because although I would love to slow down and explore underwater sections like this, it's so hard for me to resist the urge to let Sonic speed across the top of the water like he's on some turbo engine surfboard. Like Sonic 2, you have the option to play as Sonic with Tails following you, Sonic by himself, or Tails by himself. Having Tails follow you is just like it was in Sonic 2, however, playing as Tails is completely different this time around, as Tails now has the ability to fly. He basically controls just like Sonic, spin dash and all, but when you press the jump button twice, he uses his twin tails to fly. He does tire out eventually, and you'll have to let him float down to Earth before you can fly again. Also, the special jumping abilities from the shields are not a thing with Tails. Tails can also swim around underwater, which works the same way as flying. Needless to say, playing as Tails is great for exploration purposes, as there are some areas that Sonic just can't reach, but Tails can. Tails is basically easy mode, except for this boss in Marble Garden Zone. See, when you play as Sonic, the entire fight takes place in the air with Tails carrying Sonic. Every time Robotnik is near, you simply jump free and try to hit him. No matter what happens, Tails will always catch you, so falling to your death is not a thing you have to worry about. However, when you play as Tails, it's basically the same fight, except Tails is by himself. In other words, he's still in his flying pose, you have unlimited flight for this fight, and can't curl up into a ball, which means the only way to score a hit on Robotnik is to fly up under him and try to damage him with your tails. This is much easier said than done. Aside from this fight, everything else is made easier with Tails. Like Sonic 2, we've got 7 Chaos Emeralds to collect, which means 7 special stages to complete. In the previous Sonic games, you needed 50 or more rings to access a special stage, either at the end of the act or at a checkpoint. In this game, the special stages are accessed by jumping into the giant gold rings that are hidden in secret corners of various stages. You don't need 50 rings to access these special stages, you just need to know where the ring locations are. The special stages themselves are really fun. You're on this giant checkered sphere in Mode 7, running automatically, being able to turn 90 degrees to the right or left. Your goal is to touch all of the blue spheres in the arena. Doing so will award you with the Chaos Emerald. Touching one of the red spheres causes instant failure, so avoid them at all costs. Touching a white sphere bumps Sonic back and causes him to walk backwards until you press the up directional button. Each special stage has a certain number of rings as well. Collecting all of them rewards you with a crap ton of points. There is no time limit, so you can theoretically remain in the special stage forever. However, Sonic increases his running speed the longer you're in the special stage, making it very easy to screw up because you turn at the wrong time. Unlike Sonic 2, Tails is merely an extension of Sonic when you choose to play with Tails following you. He's not a separate entity with a separate AI like he is in the main game, which means he won't screw you up like he did in Sonic 2. Collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds and Sonic gains the ability to transform into Super Sonic. In Sonic 2, you turn super by jumping when you're holding 50 rings or more. In this game, you have to press the jump button twice while holding 50 rings or more. This may not sound like a huge deal, but it is so much easier to avoid going super if you don't want to. Also, after you've collected all of the emeralds, jumping into any giant ring will simply give you an additional 50 rings. As was the case in Sonic 2, collecting the Chaos Emeralds as Tails doesn't do a darn thing. So don't do it. You might notice that if you touch a checkpoint while holding 50 or more rings, a halo of stars will appear just like in Sonic 2. Yes, jumping into these will take you to a special stage, but not for Chaos Emeralds this time. This leads you to a little bonus minigame in which you can play with this giant gumball machine and win some items like 10 ring packs, 1-ups, or shields. Something cool about Sonic 3 is that it features the ability to save, so you don't have to play this game in one sitting if you don't want to. The graphics are smooth, bright, and colorful. Sonic's model has been changed slightly, making him appear a bit more edgy and mainstream. Now the music. Now, I've been dreading this part. There has been a lot of debate over the years regarding who actually composed the music to Sonic 3. Some people say it was Howard Drawson, some people say it was Michael Jackson, some people say it was Beethoven. Okay, nobody actually says that. As far as I can tell, Michael Jackson was initially signed to compose the soundtrack but was later dropped, most likely due to the child sex accusations he was facing at the time. Whether you believed he was guilty or not, having his name in your game was probably not a sound marketing move. Instead, the majority of the soundtrack was handled by a guy named Brad Buxer. Buxer had some musical connections to Jackson, as well as being the keyboard player for the new wave group, the Jetsons. Interestingly enough, the Jetsons wrote a song called Hard Times, which, at the time, had never been publicly released. So Buxer used it in this game as one of the stage tracks. We all know it better as Ice Cap Zone. As for the soundtrack itself is concerned, I think Sonic 2 has a better soundtrack overall, but this one is still great. Something really cool is that in each zone, Act 2 has a slightly different track than Act 1. It's still the same song, but with differences in things such as the tempo or instrumentation. Not all of it is good in my opinion. The music that plays during the Act 1 mini-boss is a bit too funky for my taste, and Knuckles' theme is simply a drone drum beat. Launch-based zone music is extremely anticlimactic. I also really miss the main theme of the first two games. However, I still love many of these tracks, such as both acts of Angel Island Zone, Ice Cap Zone, Act 2 of Hydrocity Zone, the special stage theme, and the Act 2 Robotnik boss, the credits theme, and I absolutely adore the final boss music. It starts out so frantic and urgent, but becomes so epic and triumphant towards the end. All in all, Sonic 3, by itself, is a great game. It isn't the best, but it's still very fun. Now for Sonic and Knuckles. Playing this game as Sonic, you will notice that Tails is nowhere to be seen. Sonic is going solo this time around. The game starts off in Mushroom Hill Zone with absolutely no context as to what's going on. But it won't be long before we realize that Knuckles and Robotnik are still very much at large. Just about everything introduced in Sonic 3 is maintained here. Act 1 of most zones ending with a mini-boss fight against a robot, seamlessly transitioning into Act 2, which finishes with a boss fight against Robotnik, and then the critter releasing capsule. It's all here. We're even still on the same island as we were in Sonic 3. You won't be running into Knuckles nearly as much as you were in the last game, but he still shows his ugly mug every now and then. The first few stages aren't very story-driven, just the standard complete one zone and transition into the next. However, once you reach Lava Reef Act 2, you should start noticing things becoming more dynamic. Towards the end of the zone, you'll see a portion of the Death Egg poking through the cavern ceiling, leading us to believe that this is where the Death Egg crashed at the end of Sonic 3. And during the boss fight, it even powers up. In Hidden Palace Zone, which only contains one act, you get to have an actual fight with Knuckles. It shouldn't be too hard to take him out, and once you do, Knuckles will retreat further into the palace into a room filled with mysterious emeralds. Dr. Robotnik then appears to try and steal the source of the island's energy, the Master Emerald. Knuckles angrily tries to stop him, like, "Get your fat egg-smelling hands off my emerald, punk!" But Robotnik clearly ain't having none of that. Robotnik escapes with the emerald in tow, and Knuckles bids Sonic to follow him, and the two jump into a nearby teleporter that takes them to Sky Sanctuary Zone, where the Death Egg is seen rising in the distance. So we can assume that Robotnik needed the Master Emerald to power the Death Egg. Sonic sets off by himself to stop Robotnik. Something interesting about this stage, there is only one type of Badnik in the entire zone, modeled after Robotnik himself, known as the Egg Robo. This stage also only has one act, however it contains 3 boss fights against another robot Sonic, known as Mecha Sonic, throughout various points in the stage. The first 2 fights feature Mecha Sonic in an Eggmobile, taking on the forms of the Green Hill Zone boss fight from Sonic 1 and the Metropolis Zone boss fight from Sonic 2, while the third fight is very similar to the Silver Sonic boss fight from Sonic 2. After defeating Mecha Sonic, note that he only appears to be stunned, Sonic runs up a spiraling path in hopes of reaching the Death Egg before the entire shrine collapses and jumps onto the station at the last minute, where you will begin the final stage, Death Egg Zone. This isn't like Sonic 2, where Death Egg was nothing more than a small area with 2 boss fights. This is a full 2-act zone with Robotnik's best forces trying to stop you. Just kidding, these spiked caterpillars in Mushroom Hill Zone and scorpions in Sandopolis Zone are Robotnik's best forces. Ugh, so annoying. An Act 1 mini-boss fight and another boss fight at the end of Act 2. Sonic then chases Robotnik into a giant egg robo mech, thus beginning the 3-phased final boss fight. Phase 2 shows us that the egg robo itself is holding the Master Emerald, which powers a giant laser beam. Phase 3 is an auto-scrolling section where Robotnik is frantically trying to escape in his Eggmobile with the Emerald in tow, while the ground collapses behind you. Robotnik has no means of attack at this point. Simply jump up and hit him 8 times without falling to your death below, and the Eggmobile will drop the Emerald and go down in flames. Sonic then jumps from the crumbling space station and falls toward the Earth with the Master Emerald. There are 2 different endings for Sonic, depending on whether or not you have collected the Chaos Emeralds. Without the Emerald, Sonic will fall to the Earth's atmosphere, while the Master Emerald remains suspended in space. Sonic lands on the tornado as piloted by Tails, whom we have not seen this entire game, and the 2 fly past Angel Island. Then the credits roll. This is the bad ending. Collect all of the Chaos Emeralds, and after Robotnik drops the Master Emerald and goes down in flames, a new stage called Doomsday Zone begins. Doomsday Zone consists of Super Sonic flying through space in hot pursuit of another egg robo mech flying a spaceship through large chunks of rock. Touching any of these rocks knocks Super Sonic back, but does not hurt him. Be sure to grab as many rings along the way as you can. Running out of rings in this zone spells instant death. The spaceship will occasionally fire missiles at you, which will also knock you back. After some time, Super Sonic will catch up to the ship, which will continue to fire tracking missiles at you. Your goal is to cause these missiles to crash into the egg robo's face. Be quick, you are losing rings by the second. After enough hits, the ship goes down in flames and the egg robo ejects, carrying the Master Emerald, beginning Phase 2. Phase 2 is left up to your control, as you can press the A button to give you a quick speed boost, bringing you closer to the robot. So at any point, you can fly up to the robot and attempt to smash it in the face, or you can hang back and collect rings. After enough hits, the robot drops the emerald and goes down in flames. Super Sonic grabs the emerald and again falls toward the Earth. However, this time the emerald continues to fall with Sonic and is caught, along with Sonic, by the tornado. Tails and Sonic then fly past Angel Island and drop the emerald off, causing the island to rise out of the ocean and ascend majestically into the clouds. This is the good ending. For Sonic. One of the big differences between this game and Sonic 3 is that you can also play through the game as Knuckles. Knuckles' story takes place after the events of Sonic's story. Knuckles is minding his own business when an egg robo is dispatched and sent to kill him. Things don't quite go as planned, however, and the egg robo only succeeds in pissing Knuckles off. Knuckles sets off to pound the egg robo, Robotnik, Sonic, and pretty much anybody else who gets in the way. After that, things are basically the same as Sonic's story, the most notable difference being that the Act 2 boss fight is against the egg robo and not Robotnik, except for this fight in Flying Battery Zone due to a sprite glitch that shows Robotnik. Lava Reef Act 2 has no boss fight and transitions straight into Hidden Palace Zone, and I kid you not, this is the entire zone. At the beginning of Sky Sanctuary Zone, Knuckles is caught by the egg robo as Angel Island floats in the background. Mecha Sonic attempts to wipe Knuckles out for good, but Knuckles breaks free at the last second, causing Mecha Sonic to destroy the egg robo instead. Knuckles then faces off against Mecha Sonic in a 2-phased final boss fight, Phase 1 being identical to the third Mecha battle in Sonic's story, and Phase 2 consisting of Mecha Sonic drawing power from the Master Emerald, which is sitting atop the shrine. After Mecha Sonic is defeated, the shrine collapses and Knuckles falls and lands on the tornado piloted by Sonic, who drops him off at Angel Island, which then begins to fall through the sky as the credits roll and land in the ocean. I guess Knuckles weighs too much for the island to float without the Master Emerald or something, I don't know. This is the bad ending. If you have collected all of the Chaos Emeralds, Knuckles will land on the tornado with the Master Emerald in his arm, and when Sonic drops him off, Angel Island will begin to ascend higher and higher into the heavens until it comes to rest in freaking outer space. This is the good ending. The story is, in my opinion, much better for both characters in this game than in Sonic 3. Gameplay-wise, playing as Sonic is pretty much identical to Sonic 3. The 3 shields are back, although the water shield now seems somewhat pointless as there is not a drop of water in this entire game. And you will love the fire shield in Lava Reef. Just saying. Collecting Chaos Emeralds is handled exactly as it was in Sonic 3. We have new special stages this time around, but they're the same type as Sonic 3, with the addition of the new yellow sphere which bounces you several feet in the air. This can come in handy, but it can also land you in trouble if used irresponsibly. As for the stages themselves, there is definitely an increase in raw difficulty this time around. Some of these stages are really easy to get lost in and wander around for a long time, while others are just plain cruel. I'm looking at you, Stage 3 and Stage 7. Stage 3 is a series of tight pathways completely surrounded by red spheres, leaving you absolutely no room for error. Turning or jumping at just barely the wrong time can mean instant failure, and I hate Special Stage 7 with a passion. You pretty much have to run into white spheres and let them knock you backwards and collect blue spheres behind you by running backwards. If you manage to collect all of the Chaos Emeralds, you can turn into Super Sonic, and as mentioned earlier, unlock the final stage, Doomsday Zone. While there is no Doomsday Zone playing as Knuckles, collecting all of the Chaos Emeralds here does unlock Super Knuckles, which functions exactly the same as Super Sonic. The bonus stages have returned, however you only need 20 rings this time around when touching a checkpoint. There are 2 bonus stages this time around. The first is an area filled with giant magnetic orbs that you can traverse and attempt to reach the top of the stage before the magnetic energy from the bottom catches up to you, all the while collecting shields, 10 ring packs, or 1-ups. The second is in an area very similar to the special stages of Sonic 1, with a Casino Night Zone slot machine from Sonic 2 in the center. These stages have only one purpose: to collect or lose rings. Go crazy with them. Sonic controls exactly the same as he did in Sonic 3, but what about Knuckles? Well, he can run, jump, and spin dash like Sonic, however he doesn't jump quite as high, and I do think he takes longer to reach full running speed. Don't quote me on that one though. The biggest difference is that he can glide through the air. This is accomplished by jumping and then pressing and holding the jump button a second time. This means that, like Tails in Sonic 3, Knuckles will not be able to perform any of the jumping tricks with the shields that Sonic can. Knuckles can also cling to and climb up walls. Knuckles can also break through certain walls that Sonic would have to spin dash through due to his spiked knuckles and buffed muscles. There are even some walls that Sonic can't even break, making areas only accessible by Knuckles. All of this creates new areas for Knuckles to explore while cutting them off from others. Knuckles is definitely hard mode, as the boss's AI have been increased in difficulty. Not by much, but add the fact that Knuckles doesn't jump as high as Sonic, and some of these fights just got a lot harder. The level design is more or less the same as it was in Sonic 3. Some areas are more speedy than others, and some stages like Sandopolis are more slow-paced and methodical. I especially like Death Egg Zone Act 2, as it changes the gravity polarity around, and you'll be playing upside down quite a bit. There is no save system in this game, so if you're playing on the Mega Drive, you'll have to play in one sitting and watch your continues. Graphically, this game is about the same as Sonic 3. The music was, I believed, composed by several different persons, with English composer Howard Drawson heading the team. Also on the sound team was a young buck by the name of Jun Sano, who would later become the head of the Sega sound team and composed the music for many Sonic games to come, as well as being the co-founder and guitarist of the Sonic Birth rock band Crush 40. The soundtrack itself is very similar to Sonic 3's, with the Act 2 of each stage being a remix of Act 1. Most of the tracks are original, however a few tracks from Sonic 3 are reused, such as the special stage theme, the Act 2 boss theme, and the final boss theme, which is used for the final boss of Death Egg Zone, not Doomsday Zone, which has its own theme. I especially love Flying Battery Zone, Lava Reef Zone, and Death Egg Zone and Sky Sanctuary Zone. All in all, a great soundtrack. Overall, Sonic & Knuckles by itself is a very enjoyable game. On a whole, I like it better than Sonic 3, but maybe not quite as much as Sonic 2. Now that we talked about both games separately, what's it like to play both games together? Well, let's take a look. The stage progression starts with Angel Island Zone and goes all the way through Sonic 3 normally until you get to Launch Base Zone, where, if you're playing as Sonic or Tails, you will only fight the first phase of the final boss. The Death Egg will then crash and you will begin Mushroom Hill Zone and continue throughout the Sonic and Knuckles stages. The whole story feels much more complete this time around, beginning with Sonic and Tails traveling to a remote island, racing to stop Robotnik, occasionally butting heads with Knuckles, witnessing Robotnik attempt to steal the Master Emerald, and returning Angel Island back to its rightful place in the sky. This story flows beautifully. Gameplay-wise, it does a good job of balancing elements from both halves together. Like Sonic and Knuckles, you only need 20 rings to access a bonus stage in a checkpoint, and it might be the Sonic 3 bonus minigame or one of the Sonic and Knuckles minigames. The first 7 special stages you play will be those of Sonic 3. If, by the time you reach Sonic and Knuckles portion of the game, you still haven't collected all of the Chaos Emeralds, the rest of the giant rings will continue to lead to these special stages. However, once you have all 7 emeralds, allowing Sonic to turn Super, the rings in Sonic and Knuckles will be flashing multiple colors. Jumping in one will take you to the Emerald Shrine in Hidden Palace Zone, where the Chaos Emeralds will be placed into these slots, creating these grayed out emeralds. Jumping on one of them will take you to one of the Sonic and Knuckles special stages. Oh joy! It should be noted that once you jump into one of these flashy rings, you can never go Super again, except until Doomsday Zone, as the emeralds have been placed in the shrine. It's also worthy to note that there is a ring at the very beginning of Mushroom Hill Zone that always leads to this shrine. And best of all, you can play the Sonic and Knuckles special stages in whatever order you choose. You know what that means. Get 7 and 3 out of the way first. You'll thank yourself in the end. Anyway, completing one of these stages rewards you with a Super Emerald. Collect all 7 Super Emeralds, and Sonic will be able to transform into Hyper Sonic. It basically functions identically to Super Sonic, the only difference being that pressing the jump button twice gives you an air dash and screen nuke. The screen nuke is pointless in my opinion, as you're already invincible. All in all, Hyper Sonic is, in my opinion, just barely worth the trouble of playing through the second set of special stages. If you play this game with Tails following Sonic, he'll remain with you during the Sonic and Knuckles portion, so it's nice that you get to have your little buddy with you. You can even play as Tails through the whole game if you'd like. Believe it or not, there are some secret areas in Sonic and Knuckles portion that only Tails can reach. Sadly, there is no Doomsday Zone for Tails. That's a Sonic-only edition. And if you select Knuckles from the beginning, you'll be able to play as Knuckles throughout the entirety of the game as well. There are many areas in the Sonic 3 portion that are made just for Knuckles. The Marble Garden Act 2 boss is a completely new fight, and Knuckles gets to fight the second phase of the final boss in Sonic 3. Collecting all of the Super Emeralds as Knuckles allows you to turn into Hyper Knuckles. He doesn't have an air dash, but he can still screen nuke by gliding into walls, if you care. Oh, look, I collected all of the Super Emeralds as Tails. Yippee, whoopee joy. Wait, what?
Whoa, 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 whoa. Hold the phone. Super Tails is a thing?
He even comes with these flickies around him that attack nearby enemies. Again, completely useless because of the whole, invincible thing, but there you go. The save system from Sonic 3 is back, so you don't have to play this game in a single sitting if you don't want to. A lot of the music from Sonic and Knuckles is used in this version, like the main theme, the Act 1 mini-boss theme, and Knuckles theme, all of which I prefer over their Sonic 3 predecessors. The main theme just sounds more fun to me, the Act 1 boss theme sounds more like a boss fight and less like a party, and Knuckles' theme almost makes me think of a samurai. Even though Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles were released separately, it is clear that they were always meant to be one game. On their own, they are fun enough, but together they are unbelievably enjoyable. When it comes to the original Genesis games, half of the fanbase says Sonic 2 is the best, while the other half says this is the best. I love Sonic 2 to pieces, but I think I like this game, the combined version, just a little bit better, making this my favorite of the first 3 Sonic games on the Sega Genesis.
Well, that's going to wrap up Sonic 3 and Knuckles. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the review. If you did, hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment telling me how much you loved it. If you didn't like it, hit the thumbs down button. Tell me how much you hated it. And as always, remember to subscribe. Whether you liked it or didn't like it, just subscribe anyway. And press the little bell, it gives you notifications. You know all this stuff you're supposed to do. I don't know why I'm explaining it to you again for the upteenth time. You forget everything. Jeez. Oh, and I'll see you next time. Peace out!